Hello everyone, this is part 24 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Why am I not surprised? Said Kurama. That pervert really was just on a research trip, commented Naruto. Naruto and Jiraiya found themselves in Cantona Town, a town in the south of the land of hot water and a town known for its many hot spring baths. Hey, Ero Sennin, said Naruto. Jiraiya turned his head to the blonde. Why the hell are we here? I thought we were going to Azushiogakur. Calm down, Naruto. We are, but this town is a nice stop before we take a boat to the island. We'll be here for a few days, so just relax and enjoy yourself, because after this we will pretty much be camping. There is nothing left on the island of the land of whirlpools. Consider these our last few days in civilization before heading out into the wilderness, said Jiraiya. Just admit it, you old pervert, you're just here for research. Said Naruto. Well, I kind of do have AS that I have to meet for the final draft of my next book by the end of the week, admitted Jiraiya. I knew it. We are just on a research trip. Shouted Naruto as he began freaking out. You said you were going to teach me Fuinjutsu, but now you're going to be spending all day peeping on girls in the baths. Quiet brat, said Jiraiya, shushing Naruto. I said I would teach you Fuinjutsu and I will, but I also have other things that need to get done. Don't worry, I'm almost done with my book, and all I have to do is finish the ending chapter. It won't take me more than a week. After that, we'll go to Azu. Besides, you're going to be spending most of this week reading a bunch of scrolls on the basics of Fuinjutsu. What? Reading? Complained Naruto. But I don't want to read. I thought Fuinjutsu was going to be fun and exciting. Jiraiya sighed. It was around this time that they arrived at a boruto restaurant to get some food. Listen, Fuinjutsu is complicated. It requires two things to even begin, knowledge and creativity. You already have the creativity aspect, but you still need the knowledge. If you don't know how seals even work, then there is no hope in even learning them. Just read the scrolls one have until you understand the very basics of seals and then I'll help you to learn actual sealing. Okay. But why can't you just teach me everything from the beginning? Asked Naruto. Because, this is just something that you have to do. If I just told you everything, I'm afraid it would just go in one ear or out the other ear, or I would forget to say something important, or I would say something out of order. I used those scrolls to teach your father. Besides, if you want to learn Fuinjutsu, it's going to require a lot of studying. This isn't like becoming a master of ninjutsu or genjutsu where you can just repeat the jutsu over and over again until you get it. This is completely different. So just put up with it for the rest of the week, study your scrolls during the day and just relax during the night. After this week, there isn't going to much time to truly relax for the next few weeks, explained Jiraiya. Fine, said Naruto, a little disappointed that he would be stuck basically reading for the next week, but he couldn't help it. He would give the scrolls a chance and then complain to Jiraiya later. The rest of that night, Naruto did as Jiraiya said, relax. They had found a hot springs bath where Naruto was simply relaxing while Jiraiya, well, let's just say his attention was diverted towards other places, particularly the bath on the other side of the divider. The following day, Jiraiya was busy working on the rest of his book while Naruto had finally decided to pick up the scrolls. After all, the sooner he finished them, the sooner he could get back to bugging Jiraiya to actually teach him. Naruto opened up the first scroll and began reading. Scroll 1. What is Fuinjutsu? Fuinjutsu is as its name implies. It is the art of sealing techniques. It is also a very misunderstood art. Most people see Fuinjutsu as simply the sealing. For the most part, they see it as simply sealing weapons inside scrolls. It, however, is much more than simply sealing a simple tool inside a scroll. In terms of sealing an object of power within something, a tool being sealed inside a scroll is the simplest form of sealing jutsu. Another simple form of sealing is containing energy within a slip of paper. In other words, these are paper bombs. They contain some sort of energy, usually fire and heat, which is released in an explosive manner when the seal is released. The pinnacle of sealing was seen when beings were sealed within other beings. This was most prominent during the early days of the shinobi world, before the establishment of the great nations and hidden villages. During this period in time, it was common for humans to seal other beings, primarily demons, within themselves so that they could try and tap into the demon's power to enhance their own strength. Early methods of this sealing were unsuccessful as the more powerful demons would usually absorb the consciousness of their human vessel, only becoming more powerful themselves. This trend occurred of the first 500 years of the practice until the Sage of the Six Paths successfully sealed the Yuubi inside himself to prevent it from wreaking havoc on the living world. The Sage of the Six Paths is considered to be the founder of modern-day jutsu and was exceptionally gifted at sealing techniques. However, despite his power, his time eventually came to an end. Out of fear of the Yuubi being released upon his death, the sage used his power to split the Yuubi into 9 parts, creating the 9 biju. For the next 300 years, the practice of sealing demons in humans continued, but no success. It wasn't until the year 341 CE, see note at the end of the chapter, that his sealing of demons proved successful. It was then that the Yonbi was securely sealed into a human. It was at this time where the term Jinchuriki was invented for someone who contained a demon and could tap into its power. This term was given because the human vessel for the demon gave up the prospects for a normal life, but in return they were actually able to tap into the power of the demon sealed within them. Until the year 752 CE, the only successful sealings of demons were the sealing of the biju. The reasons why only the sealing of the biju were successful are still unknown, but it is believed that it was because the biju were considered chakra monsters, that humans were able to tap into their power and contain them more easily, whereas many of the other demons used a different form of energy from chakra to sustain themselves. In the year 752 CE, the attempted sealing of the fox demon known as Hikare failed, resulting in the death of the demon, the first true death of a demon at human hands, particularly the Hosharuka clan who used to be located in a prominent village northwest of current-day Earth country. Following the failed sealing, the Hosharuka clan was obliterated by the Kyubi no Kitsune, the most powerful of the fox demons. Reasons behind this attack are still unknown, but it is believed that the attack was out of retaliation for death of Hikare. Ever since then, the sealing of demons, with the exception of the biju whose sealing has been proven successful, has pretty much stopped to avoid any accidental deaths of more demons and potential war between demons and humans. In the year 973 CE, the Kyubi no Kitsune, the last of the unsealed biju, was finally sealed following the fabled battle between Senju Harashima and Uchiha Madara. Naruto put down the scroll as he felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and regret from within him. However, it wasn't his own emotions. Kurama, is something wrong? I just really wish you wouldn't have read that, Kit, replied Kurama, trying to keep himself together. Naruto had never seen the Kyubi like this. It just brought back some painful memories. Was it concerning your own sealing? I mean, you've never been happy about that, said Naruto. Kit, right now, I could care less about my sealing. At least I survived, but she. What are you talking about? Asked Naruto. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to the first line of the last full paragraph he read. No, you don't mean. I do. Kit, why do you think I attacked the Hosharuka clan? What did you almost do when you found out that Muttboy was responsible for your vixen's injuries? What would you do if you found out someone killed her? She was your, said Naruto in disbelief. A rare tear came to Kurama's eyes. Yes, Kit, she was my vixen. Kurama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring back those memories, apologized Naruto. It's okay, Kit, you didn't know, replied Kurama. Jiraiya had put down his pen and turned around to see Naruto staring off into space. Naruto, is everything alright? Yeah, I just found out something that was kind of hard to take in, said Naruto. Well, why don't we get something to eat, to help get your mind off it? I hear there is a ramen shop in this town, said Jiraiya. Naruto instantly perked up at the mention of ramen. Sadly, this shop wasn't mentioned in his passport. The only ramen shop in his passport was located in the capital of the land of hot water, but the ramen was still pretty flavorful. Following lunch, Naruto resumed reading the first scroll. It didn't contain much more besides a bunch of examples of fuinjutsu, besides actually sealing. Reading the list, A few applications of fuinjutsu that stuck out to Naruto were amplification, transportation, barriers, and even medicine. He hated to admit it, but that first scroll was surprisingly interesting. Naruto put the first scroll aside and picked up the second scroll. Scroll 2. The seal. Sealing formulas used in fuinjutsu are comprised of two main components, the central kanjis and sealing matrix. Every seal has these two components and each component serves a vital function of the seal. The central kanjis is what gives the seal its idini. It is the central kanji that distinguishes a storage seal from an amplification seal and an explosive seal from a containment seal. While these are usually written as kanji, it is possible to use symbols as kanji, if one is skilled enough to incorporate them into the seal. The use of symbols in place of kanji usually results in making the seal more powerful, but it requires a much more complex sealing matrix, to be explained later in this scroll. Some seals may even contain multiple kanji or symbols. These seals are considered the most advanced form of fuinjutsu as they must perform multiple functions to achieve a single purpose. The seal matrix is also much more complex than a seal with a single central kanji or symbol, as the matrix has to connect and integrate multiple kanji. The sealing matrix is a series of interconnected symbols and characters that serve to manipulate the chakra present in the seal so that it can perform the designated function of the seal. The sealing matrix can perform multiple functions, including moving chakra throughout the seal, enforcing the seal to make it stronger, manipulating the chakra to perform an appropriate function, and much more. Every seal needs those two components to function. Without one, the other cannot function. With only a central kanji, the seal knows what function it needs to perform, but it does not contain any of the tools to perform said function. With only the sealing matrix, the seal has the tools to do what it needs to do, but it doesn't know what it needs to do. Naruto continued reading through this scroll and even reread it. So much for getting through it quick and bugging Ero-Sennin to actually teach him. He started on the third scroll, which was a scroll explaining the theory behind the storage seals, until Jiraiya got up and they went to dinner. Naruto had no idea that he had been reading those scrolls all afternoon. He couldn't believe it. This fuinjutsu was actually interesting and he didn't even care if it meant reading a dozen or so scrolls on the subject before he could even begin training. Jiraiya just told him that it must be something he was meant to do, like it was in his B. In a way, it made sense as he was the son of two great seal masters. The rest of the week was spent with Naruto reading over the rest of the scrolls. The remaining 10 or so scrolls that Naruto had focused on some of the more common types of seals, storage, explosion, barrier, amplification, sealing, and seal removal. The last few scrolls were dedicated more onto explaining how to design the seal itself, primarily how to design the matrix and the components required to get the seal matrix to perform the proper operations. The evenings were spent with Naruto trying to track down Jiraiya at whichever hot spring bath he was in, followed by Jiraiya up late at night trying to finish his book. The last night they were supposed to stay there came and Jiraiya was busy freaking out how he was still missing the last dozen or so pages of his book. He had been up for the past 50 hours trying to figure something out until he finally collapsed from exhaustion. Naruto looked over at his exhausted master and sighed before walking through the sea of crumpled up papers on the floor. Naruto then took the last few pages Jiraiya had written in the manuscript and read them. Unlike Jiraiya, ideas flooded into his head and he began writing what he thought was a suitable ending to Jiraiya's book, including a small adult scene that wrapped up the next Ika. Auto FN, well, he had to have some idea on what was going on in the adult scene. After all, he's been hanging around Jiraiya for the past few months and he invented the S-Jutsu. This was not a good week for Sasuke's fangirls. He had been hospitalized almost a month ago after sustaining injuries from when Orochimaru had tried to abduct him. Tsunade had tried her best to keep that quiet, but word surrounding the truth of the ill-fated mission spread too fast for her to control. Before she knew it, the entire village knew that Sasuke and his team were ambushed by Freaky Sound Ninja. But what really made things worse was that earlier in the week, he had just disappeared from the village. Usually, the fangirls were able to track Sasuke down after a few hours. Some of the shinobi fangirls even used some ninjutsu they knew to facilitate in finding him, like Ino using her mind transfer jutsu to take over a hawk's mind to search for Sasuke from an aerial perspective. However, they had no luck at all. Rumors began spreading between them that Sasuke had either S from his injuries or had run off to join some pedophile who liked to play with snakes. These rumors were mainly started by boys who had gotten tired of all the girls in the village fawning over Sasuke. Regardless, there were a few fangirls who accepted these rumors and then they spread like wildfire. The only Sasuke fangirl who wasn't freaking out was Sakura. Despite her noticing Sasuke missing, she had also noticed an absence of a particular silver-haired Jonin. She was smart enough to deduce that Kakashi-sensei had to have taken Sasuke on some sort of training trip. Besides, she would see him in a few months when Team 7 reconvened before the Chunin exams. As a matter of fact, Sakura didn't even have time to worry about Sasuke. She had begun her training with Tsunade in full and she was already being drilled on chakra control exercises, human anatomy, poisons and antidotes, and anything medicine. For her, it was pretty much 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. studying and learning the basics of medical ninjutsu. On the days that Tsunade had given her a break, or at least let her go home early, Shizune had offered to teach her how to fight with poisoned senbon. Sakura saw the value to this, thinking it would make her that much more useful in the upcoming Chunin. A few ago days, Sakura was even lucky to run into Haku who, after being asked, agreed to help Sakura learn to throw senbon in combat. Yesterday, Haku and Sakura had a sparring session where they fought each other using only senbon. Needless to say, Sakura looked like a mix between a human and a porcupine afterwards. She was just happy Haku had used some duller senbon so that they didn't ell as deep. Regardless, her skills with the senbon were showing improvement after her first week out of the hospital and it was only a matter of time before she was able to use them proficiently in combat. For Hinata, it was a lonely week. She had been in Konoha for most of the week as her team had not been given many mission assignments. Normally, that wouldn't be a bad thing, if Naruto were here. Instead, she was stuck in Konoha with just her father and family. Neji had been assigned to a mission and while she didn't mind being at home, there was still a great deal of tension between her and Hanabi from their most recent spar. She was at the training grounds right now, trying her best to work on her wind chakra manipulation. It was early morning and her father had some business with the clan to deal with before he could focus time on training with her. Ever since after the Chunin exams, she actually liked training with her father as he was becoming more open and less harsh. The one thing that did trouble her a little was that he was still training her in the Juoken, which she was finding more and more uncomfortable the more she advanced with it. Neji was right, she wasn't well suited for the Juoken due to her wind nature. Taking the next kunai, she held it, working on channeling her chakra. She really wanted to get through this step as she would then be able to begin the next part of her training which her father had mentioned would be to incorporate her wind chakra into the Juoken. His personal hopes for her were that a wind-enhanced Juoken would result in a much more powerful strike. If he was right, this could finally get the elders off Hinata's back for a while. Despite her progress, everyone else in the main branch still saw Hinata as weak and unworthy. He figured it was because they saw that Hanabi had much more potential in the Juoken and as the Hyuga clan heir than Hinata and saw training her as a waste of time that could have been better spent on Hanabi. As a father, he hated how the rest of the family was playing favoritism towards Hanabi, which was the main cause behind this superiority-inferiority complex that Hinata, Hiashi, and Neji were afraid she was developing. Hinata focused her chakra into the knife, taking a few extra seconds to try and refine it as best as she could before tossing the knife. The kunai left her hand, sailing towards the training post she was using. A crack was heard and Hinata examined her result. The knife had sailed clean through the post, embedding itself in the ground behind the post. She had done it. This phase of wind manipulation was complete. Jiraiya let out a big yawn. Damn it, I fell asleep. And I've only got a few hours left before I have to send the manuscript to my publisher for editing and publishing. What makes it worse is I still don't have any idea what to write, said Jiraiya. He then took a look at the blank pieces of paper in front of him, only to realize they weren't blank. Sitting in front of him was the completed final chapter of the book, but it wasn't written by him. This is. Jiraiya took a look over the chapter sitting in front of him. It definitely wasn't his handwriting on the paper, but it was familiar handwriting. He took a look at the paper and then to the sleeping blonde in the next room. No, it couldn't be. Naruto couldn't have finished it, thought Jiraiya. Well, Let's see what the brat wrote. If anything, it will give me a good laugh. Jiraiya spent the next 20 minutes reading over the manuscript. He hated to admit it, but it was good. Even the small adult part that was included was good. The chapter was just lacking some constancy with the rest of the book, but that was easy enough to change. He had an idea now on how to write the last chapter, and he began writing, using Naruto's ideas, but just adjusting them to better fit the story. However, he didn't notice that said boy had woken up and was looking over his shoulder. "Ero Sennin!" shouted Naruto, making Jiraiya jump. "Brat, don't do that," replied Jiraiya. "Now go get ready because we are leaving after I finish writing the last chapter." Naruto sighed as he walked off to go pack his stuff. "I guess he didn't need my help writing that after all," thought a slightly depressed Naruto. He had thought what he had written was good and was hoping for some form of acknowledgement from Jiraiya. A bit later, Naruto came out of the room, everything packed and another of the Fuinjutsu scrolls read. Jiraiya was busy now sealing up the envelope that contained the manuscript for his next book, Ika Ika Violence. Jiraiya looked up at the boy. "Hey Naruto, thanks. It really helped me get over that writer's block," said Jiraiya, holding up the envelope with the manuscript. "You know, if you ever decide to give up on your dream to become Hokage, I'm sure you could make a good adult novelist." Naruto knew Jiraiya had actually used his work now, but that still didn't mean he was happy about Jiraiya suggesting he should write more Ika Ika books. "Oh, don't worry Naruto, it's only a matter of time before you come over to the dark side of the perv," thought Jiraiya, grinning. The two left Cantona town shortly after checking out of the town and mailing the manuscript to the publisher. Jiraiya had to admit he was surprised that Naruto had actually taken to the scrolls on Fuinjutsu that he had given him. He was honestly expecting the blonde to have started bugging him by the end of day 2, but instead Naruto had only asked for a few examples of seals to look over. Regardless of that, their next stop was the port city of Shakuzima, their last stop before the ruins of Uzushiogakure. It was late in the evening when they arrived. The sun was already beginning to set and they were standing on a cliff overlooking the port and ocean. Jiraiya pulled out his spyglass that he would normally use for peeping but aimed its gaze off into the ocean. "Hey Naruto, take a look over in that direction," said Jiraiya, handing Naruto the spyglass and pointing off towards a distant island in the ocean. He couldn't make out too much of the island except for what looked like an old rundown pier and a few whirlpools surrounding the island. "Is that?" asked Naruto. "Yep. Uzushiogakure," said Jiraiya. Naruto couldn't believe it. He was almost there, almost at the home of his ancestors. "Alright, let's go. Get to bed early because we've got to leave early. We need to pass the reefs surrounding the island tomorrow between 1 and 3 in the afternoon or we risk getting sucked into the whirlpools that surround the island," said Jiraiya. Naruto gulped a little at the thought of getting sucked into a whirlpool but went with Jiraiya to the town anyways. "Hey Ero Sennin, so when are you actually going to start teaching me Fuinjutsu? I mean like actually teach me. I've already read the scrolls over a few times and I think I get them. I don't know why. I never really liked reading scrolls and stuff during the academy, but for some reason these were interesting," said Naruto. "Hey, well it's good that you finally began to read some stuff. As to why you actually like the subject, it could be because you come from a long line of seal masters, not to mention your dad was one of the best there ever was. As for when I'll begin teaching you, we'll start when we get to the island tomorrow. I've made arrangements for a few fishermen to get us through the reefs tomorrow and then pick us up about 3 weeks later. That should give us ample time to find something that could help my task of finding a way to remove the caged bird seal and to teach you some of the basics in Fuinjutsu." "Sound good?" asked Jiraiya. "Can't wait to get started, Tobayo," declared Naruto. "Gah, that bastard. He'll pay for doing this," cried Orochimaru in one of his hideouts. He was sitting in his throne with bandages around the stumps he had for arms after a sage-powered Rasengan practically tore them off Orochimaru. "Orochimaru-sama, please settle down," said Kabuto. "How can I? Not too long after I regain the function of my arms, that bastard of a teammate Jiraiya ate them off again," hissed the snake. "Please Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto was off. "Shut up Kabuto, unless you have a way to give me back my arms," shouted Orochimaru. "Well, I don't right now, but I think I know who does, or did, have a way to grow back body parts," said Kabuto. Orochimaru knew Kabuto well enough to know what he was talking about. You're talking about the Uzumakis, aren't you? Asked Orochimaru. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. If anyone knows how to design a regeneration seal, it's them. With your permission, I would like to take an expedition with me to see what we can recover, said Kabuto. Also, I'm going to need her. You see, I don't think I'm going to be able to access the information without her. She can be quite a handful, you know that, Kabuto. But nonetheless, if it will get me my arms back, then I'll allow it. You have 2 weeks, said Orochimaru. After that, I expect you to get right to work giving me my arms back. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.